Darkness, my old friend, I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp. I turned my collar to the cold and damp, when my eyes were stared by the flash of a neon light. It split the night, touch the sound of silence, and in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more, people talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs that voices never share. No one did disturb the sound of silence. Fool, said I, you do not know, silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words
watch us where we go and help us to be wise in times when we don't know. Let this be our prayer when we lose our way. Lead us to a place, guide us with your grace, to a place where we'll be safe.
La luce che tu dai
Pray we'll find your
nel
love
cuore resterà.
and hold it in our heart.
A ricordarci
When
che
stars go out each night,
l'eterna stella sei nella mia
let this be
preghiera.
our prayer.
Quanta fede c'è
When shadows fill our day,
lead us to a place,
guide us with your grace. Give us faith so
we'll be safe. Sogniamo un mondo senza più violenza, un mondo di giustizia e di speranza. Ognuno dirà, Manuele sei vicino, simbolo di pace, di fraternità. La forza che ci dai,
we ask that life be
il
kind.
desiderio che
Watch us from above.
ognuno troviamo
We hope it's all we'll find.
intorno dentro sé.
Another soul to love. Let this be our prayer. Let this be our prayer.
Just like every child
Just like every child.
needs to find a place,
Guide us with your grace.
give us faith so we'll be safe. E la fede che hai acceso a noi, senza che ci salverà. Jesus loves you more than you will know. Whoa, whoa, whoa. God bless you, please, Mrs. Robinson. Heaven holds a place for those who pray. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. Sitting on a sofa on a Sunday afternoon, to the candidates' debate. Laugh about it, shout about it when you've got to choose. Every way you look at it, you lose. Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? A nation turns its lonely eyes to you. Ooh, what's that you say, Mrs. Robinson? Joe to Joe has left and gone away. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. There are places I remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better, and some have gone, and some remain. All these places had their moments with lovers and friends I still can recall. Some are dead and some are living in my life. I love them all. this room and I've walked this floor. I used to live alone before I knew ya. I've seen your flag on the marble arch, and love is not a victory march. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah.
Maybe there's a God above, but all I've ever learned from love was how to shoot somebody out of dream. And it's not a cry that you hear at night. It's not somebody's single heart. It's cold and it's a broken hallelujah. 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 Hey guys, thanks for listening. If you like our music, please hit that subscribe button and check the link for our shop down below. Kids are driving Saturday afternoon, just pass me by. And I'm just savoring familiar sights. We shared some history, this town and I. And I can't stop that long forgotten feeling of her. Time to book a room to stay tonight. Number one is to find some friends to say you're doing well. After all this time, you boys look just the same. Number two is the happy hour at one of two hotels. Settle into play, do you remember so and so? Oh, and number three is never say your name. Oh, the flame trees will blind the weary driver, and there's nothing else could set fire to this town. There's no change, there's no pace. Everything within its place just makes it harder to believe that she won't be around. It's sentimental bullshit anyway. Takes more than just a memory to make me cry. And I'm happy just to sit at a table with old friends and see which one of us can tell the biggest lies. And there's a girl just falling in love where the piano stands with a young rocket factory out of worker just holding hands. And I'm wondering if he'll go or if he'll stay. Do you remember nothing stopped us on the field in our day? Oh, there's flame trees by the weary driver, and there's nothing else to set fire to this town. There's no change, there's no pace. Everything within this place just makes it harder to believe she won't be around. All the flame trees will blind the weary driver, and there's nothing else to set fire to this town. There's no change, there's no pace. Everything within its place just makes it harder to believe she won't be And now, is it too late to say how you made my life so different in your quiet way? I can see the joy in simple things, a sunlit sky, and all the songs we used to sing. I have walked and I have prayed. I could forgive and we could start again. In the end, you are my one.
Just pretend I'm holding you and whispering things soft and low, and think of me, how it's gonna be. Just pretend I didn't go.
When I walked away, I heard you say, if you need me, you know what to do. I knew it then, I'll be back. can't recall the things we said. Oh, why you crying?
But now I know it was wrong to go. I belong there by your side. Yes, I'll come flying to you again. All the crying is through. I will hold you and love you again.
Until then, we'll just pretend.
I will hold you and love you again. But until then, we'll just pretend. We'll just pretend.
That better? That's better. Your eyes see what your mind knows. With a friendly face, you simply glow. All you look for is company, not much to ask for a century of loving and caring smiles. All you want now is company for a while. You have lived through the war and kept the peace, floods, droughts and fires, a giver of comfort and peace. A century you have left behind you. At this point in your life, there is not much that's new. Your love of little people, you could watch them all day. You listen to them talking, conversing with them in play. Sometimes you get frustrated with the lack of respect. Well, I guess that's just the modern effect. So much has changed since you were a child, from hemlines to weather to children that are wild. If only the world could see through your eyes with an open mind that has been learnt by and by. So as your mind began fading, your memories were strong. You laughed at the stories made so long ago. We sat beside you, you weren't alone. You were surrounded with love when you were called home. What constitutes a successful life? How many times do we ask ourselves that question? Is it being successful in our careers? Is it being lucky in love? Is it having nice cars, a big house or money? Or is it just simply being happy? It's been said that a successful life is one that has experienced the love of family, that shared sorrows and celebrated joyful times. This may well be true, but perhaps it is also the subtle influence of living a good example, so that when you are gone, you leave an enduring memory in the lives of those you have touched. Indeed, Phyllis Smart led a successful life. Good morning to each of you attended here or gathered here today. My name is Simon, and along with all the staff of Parkside Funerals, it has been our privilege to have been invited to care for Phil after her death and to be a small part of this service. And so we thank you, Kerry, Carolyn and Rodney and your families for inviting us to be here. Could I please take a moment to ask if anyone has a mobile phone that they might like to turn it off or onto silent as their mark of respect for Phil? There are undoubtedly some people who unfortunately cannot attend today. And so I'd like to mention that we're thinking of them, as I'm sure they're taking a few quiet moments to think of all of us and perhaps remembering Phyllis in their own ways. Some of these people may be watching this service via live stream or watching at a later time, and so I welcome your presence amongst us today as well. After our service here in the chapel, we'll be moving over to the Wynyard Lawn Cemetery for a short interment service. After this time at the graveside, you're all warmly invited and welcome to join the family back here at the chapel for a time of refreshment and sharing of your own memories of Phil. Alternatively, you are welcome to remain here as we journey to Wynyard, and the family will join you when they return. Phyllis achieved in life what she wanted, a life filled with love, with family and happiness. This is not to say it was without its challenges. She certainly faced those, but they were minor in comparison to the joy she experienced and the love that she gave. Phyllis was the dearly loved wife of Jack, or Leonard John Smart, the adored and devoted mother and mother-in-law of Carrie and Marg, Carolyn and Wayne, and Rodney and Christine, treasured nana of Lisa, Sharon and Craig, deceased, Bridget, Jeremy and Christopher, Justin, Ben and Daniel, and obviously their families. So let us begin to share the story of Phil's life and hear about the influence that she has had on the lives of those closest to her. And so firstly, I'd like to invite Wayne to come forward and share the eulogy.
Thanks, Simon. Good morning. If I were to ask you, is that right, what was special about 1921, most of you would know. Others would say, was that the year that a lady entered Parliament? But the ones in the know, us, know that 1921 was the year that Phyllis Gwendolyn Bottle was born at Deloraine. Her parents, Frank and Gwendolyn, and later her siblings Lorna, Don and Pauline, all lived at Deloraine until later on in life Frank was transferred to Burnie, and the family lived up Upper Burnie at Abbott Street. And the children all attended the local Catholic convent school. When Phil was about 15, for some time she held the title of the position of companion to a wealthy Burnie resident. She maintained that during this time she learnt the mannerisms of so-called ladylikeship behaviour from her employer, so that stood her in good stead for life. Her formal employment included a short stay at the paper mill, then as a telephonist at the Burnie Telephone Exchange. Then she met the love of her life, Leonard Jack Smart, hereafter referred to as Jack, a Victorian working at the paper mills. And as this relationship developed, they wanted to get married. The problem was, Phil was only 19. As it was 1940, and during the war, she needed her parents' consent for that. Problem number two was, her parents did not approve of Jack. So that was a problem. So what to do next? They fixed that. And they ran off. And it ran off to Melbourne and eloped. And I've lost that spot here and I'm trying to find it. And when I got to Melbourne, they married in a registry office. To allow this to happen, Phil declared her age as 22. This was possibly, and she was only 19, this was possibly the naughtiest thing she ever did in her life, putting her age up for 3 years. Then they had a grand wedding breakfast, meat pies. Phil stayed at Jack's parents' place while Jack returned to work in Burnie to save up enough money for her for their back to Bertie. And I see people just counting their fingers, so they're probably trying to add up. If you're 19, you race off to Melbourne to get married, what caused it? Well, let me tell you, Kerry was born 15 months after they got married. Initially, they lived in a boarding house until they moved to number 9 Cunningham Street into a new home built by the mill. This became the family home. All the children were born there and remained at home until they got married. This was a very happy period in their lives. Jack in secure work as a shift worker and Phil fully occupied raising 3 children, keeping house for a family and at a later date for her brother-in-law who came to live with them. The war years were difficult for people trying to establish a home life, balancing finances, raising a family, meeting demands of shift work, ensuring that house payments were met, education costs paid and other domestic costs that were there on a weekly basis. At times, Jack worked at 2 jobs, able to do this when on afternoon or night shift and days off. Phil's control of the purse was a critical component of their existence, ensured that the family had a good upbringing. Quality time that included many outside activities of picnics, bike riding, mushroom gathering, blackberry picking and involvement in school activities. Rationing of food during the war was a real problem for families, and many families then were involved in this sort of activities of gathering mushrooms, blackberries, shooting game, fishing, all that sort of thing. So it was the way they lived. It's probably hard for today's generation to fully understand how tough it was for the average person during the war and on into the 50s. No plastic money was ready access to credit. If you wanted something, you saved up for it, if you were able to, otherwise you went without. The idiom of the day, save up for a rainy day, was uppermost in people's minds. For most, it stayed with them for the rest of their lives. Phyllis's creativity and skills in knitting, sewing and crocheting was a bonus for both the family and Jack's income. Her skills in making clothes for the families was a great value. It's fair to say the smart family always looked smart. When Carol was at Teachers College and a need arose for a new outfit for a special occasion, a phone call to Mum would see in due time a designer outfit set up on the bus, and it always fitted like a glove. In later years, her grandchildren were the beneficiaries of such skills. I'm not sure where Phil developed these skills, but I can assure you her work was of the highest quality. Both Jack and Phil were car enthusiasts. Their cars always looked like they had just come out of the showroom and woe betide of any dust, dirt or even rain settled on them. They had a liking for black sedans with chrome trims and white-walled tyres. Without doubt, they were the cars of Bertie, admired by one and all. I know of a local football player and highly rated Tasmanian player who bought their Falcon with its classy trims and majestic look, so that when he transferred to Scottsdale, he would arrive in style, and what style it was. In the years 1962 to 65, Phil and Jack went off to New Zealand for a holiday, and Carol and Rodney got married. It was a busy and costly time for the family indeed. Did that mean Phil and Jack were free at last and could have the house to themselves? Yes, but no, not for long. It soon became a creche, and Phil and Jack the doting grandparents. And talk about doting grandparents. As Grant became a capable mini-league player, an area which both, especially Jack, became supporters, there was the offer of a financial bonus reward for the best player, and I think it was the grand final, given by Jack and Phil. Providing, of course, that best player was Grant. And that's what you call doting grandparents. Towards the end of the 60s, plans were afoot to build a new home at Granville Avenue, with its wonderful views across the town and Bass Strait. The house was built and they moved into it around about 1970. A new home, plus Jack becoming a day worker due to a promotion after 35 years of shift work, was really special for them. At last, normality was theirs to enjoy. The routine was Jack coming home from work, settling down with a beer each to watch the current soapy. And I'll tell you what, if Jack was late, look out. She wasn't very happy about it. It was around this time that Phil returned to the workforce, gaining a position in a fashion boutique in Bertie. Her attractiveness, sense of style, engaging manner and lovely smile made her the ultimate fashion saleswoman. Because the clientele were mostly top end of the town, they could afford to buy fashion, and Phyllis loved fashion. She was in her element. She certainly enjoyed the environment. She was very, very happy enjoying life. But during her time at the boutique, she experienced one embarrassing incident that I know of. It was Christmas Eve, late night shopping, customers browsing or purchasing, when in stopped or staggered a certain young man looking for a Christmas present for his wife. He had been with workmates having beers for Christmas. From all reports, he looked as if he had enough beers for several Christmases. He was noticed but ignored by the super saleswoman. I think she wanted him to just disappear. How dare a drunk come into a fashion boutique? Left to his own devices, he staggered around the restaurants, carefully dodging other customers, and it was this dodging movement that caused him to stumble into not one but two clothes racks. Crash down they came and dresses went everywhere. And the drunk lay amongst the dresses on the ground saying to himself, "What happened? What happened?" Well, it was obvious the customers there were from the top end of town, not very complimentary to the drunk on the floor. Their scathing and tut-tutting remarks had never been forgotten. And the top of her, Phil, also joined the chorus of disapproval, tut-tut-tutting herself. And she then took the opportunity to go out the back, telephone Carol, and asked her to come immediately and remove Wayne, as he was the drunk and disorderly causing mayhem amongst the fittings and fixtures. After that, I thought there was a bit of snobbishness in Phil, because as she served the remaining customers, she did not let on there was any connection between her and the unfortunate young man on the ground. Well, Phil worked there until late 1975, when Jack was diagnosed with terminal cancer, passing away in January 1976. He was the love of her life, and no one was ever chosen to replace him. She was only weeks off turning 55. It was almost 2 years before she returned to paid employment. This was at Fitzgerald's, now known as Harris Scarf. In a fairly short time, she became manager of ladies' fashion, and once again was very, very happy indeed, doing what she loved and being paid for it. Prior to returning to work, Phil had the opportunity to travel overseas with friends for 4 months. Travelling around Europe and the United Kingdom was a wonderful experience for her. Being a real royalist, the highlight for Phil was being able to see Buckingham Palace. And I think she was very disappointed in not getting an invitation to Derbyshire tea with Elizabeth and Philip. But as Jerry mentioned in his Facebook post, after she'd passed, her wish to receive a message from the Queen on the occasion of her 100th birthday probably kept her going until she reached this milestone. A career change in 1981 led my family and myself to Bridport, where we bought into the newsagent general store, and afterward extended the business to include Bridie's coffee shop. It was there that Phil was irrelevant. Her perfect light and fluffy scones, and Carol told me to put that in, plus homemade raspberry jams were bestsellers, a must if you visit Bridport. Phil was quite the customer magnet and an excellent saleswoman, very competent in both the coffee shop and the general store. And we had enough confidence in her and our staff to manage things as we took a holiday to Queensland to visit Grant, who was living up there. Before leaving AWPM, I made a floor safe for the shop. It was made out of heavy-duty RSS material, 13mm stainless steel plate for the lid, and a combination lock that was welded into it. I concreted into the floor of the office with the stainless steel lid and lock flush for the floor. It was a valuable acquisition for our business. For many, many years while we were there, it was actually bomb-proof. As staff commander in charge, or in chief, Phil was the only one to know the lock's combination. I was very comfortable with this and spent time on several occasions showing her how to operate the combination. She caught on quickly. Imagine my disbelief when we returned from holidays and I found that the lock was broken beyond repair, with the tongue of the lock protruding out of the lid so that it could not be closed. I realised then that even though the safe was bomb-proof, it was not Philly-proof. Another item of concern was our cool room, a fairly large room that housed all the goods that were chilled. This morning, this is while we were away, in came the milkman with several crates of milk. Into the storeroom he went, unloaded the milk and walked out with his trolley. Phil offered to close the door for him. It was a very heavy, durable door, just right for a cool room. She slammed the door shut, bang, broke the top hinge, with the door now at an acute angle across the doorway. After the milkman could not believe what he saw, seeing, and he charged off to get a welder to repair the damage. So during our holiday, Phil oversaw the breaking of the safe and the destruction of the cool room door. I've often thought that maybe this was a payback for the fashion boutique disaster. When Phil sold her Grandview home at the age of 83, she felt that all the units she had looked at were sadly lacking, so she decided to build. During the period of construction, she was guided by her family's input, but had strong ideas on what she wanted. Kerry drew up the plans, and Justin, her granddaughter Sharon's partner, professionally built her a beautiful new home. She developed a lovely garden and felt very comfortable and secure, proudly independent. She was able to look after herself and her dog Matilda up until she was 98. Great effort. After moving to Launceston to be close to Carolyn, she celebrated her 100th birthday with a party attended to by new friends at Fred French Masonic Care. A second party followed with family and friends gathering to help us celebrate this wonderful milestone at Franklin House. So many of the guests could not believe how well she looked in this on the board over there was taken from Franklin House. Phil took great pride in her appearance, even up until she became a resident of the nursing home, and she did not need any mobility aids. She did love her snazzy new black and silver walking stick, but did not feel a need to use it, so she didn't. She was the first to admit that she hated looking unkempt, a trait she maintained she inherited from her grandmother. I often thought Phil took more time to get ready to go gardening than I took the pack to go overseas. I have to admit, though, she never kept us waiting if we were taking her anywhere. As a family, how very proud we were to have a person of her ilk as a moral compass. With Phil's passing, we lost the matriarch of the family. Her wise counselling and supportive, loyal ways left an impression on all that knew her. She was an outstanding mother, mother-in-law and nana to my family, and I'm sure that Kerry and Rodney would share those sentiments with regards to their own families. Farewell, Phil. You've left a void that will take a long time to fill. Rest in peace.
This is going to be a little lengthy, but then a life lived long is worthy of a long tribute. So sit back and relax. Not that long ago, I came across one of my old school books. This one was especially archaic, dating back to when I was in grade 2 at Van Diemen's Primary School in Burnie. It was quite exciting to find a piece of my writing in that book, which simply read, "Whenever I stay at my nana's house, I dream about a parade." Finding this writing was confirmation that my memory is real. I did always dream about a parade or festival of some sort when as a child I stayed at Nan's house. Obviously over the years, the content and visual recall have faded, but my memory of the feelings this dream evoked are vivid. In simple terms, they were of happiness and security. These feelings truly reflect how I always felt in Nan's presence. Snuggled up in her bed, no doubt increased that sense of safety and protection. Up until about the age of 12, whenever I stayed with Nan, I always slept in her bed, despite her wishful insistence that I would sleep so much better in my own bed. Whenever I was with Nan, I felt I was in the company of a friend. Regardless of the stage of life I have been in, a small child, a teenager, a young woman, and now sadly a middle-aged woman, I was always able to have a really good yarn with Nana. I especially loved hearing her stories about her growing up. It gave me a sense of my own origins, but it also brought to life for me who she was as a little girl and a young lady, her likes and dislikes, her fears, interests and values. Throughout her life, Nan had not been an overly social person. She was not a social butterfly in the sense that she was always out visiting people. She wasn't that interested in joining social and community clubs. It just wasn't her thing. She always seemed to me to be very comfortable in her own company, a quality I admire and that I imagine holds one in good stead when one is suddenly in the situation of being left to live alone, as she was when her husband, mate, and the love of her life, Jack, our pop, died. However, there was a quality about Nan that just drew people to her. People enjoyed being in her company and sought it out. She just had charisma. I think a big part of her qualities was her wicked sense of humour, coupled with her dignity and beauty. No one could ignore her ageless blue eyes that could both twinkle with naughtiness or widen with naivety and innocence. Even up until her last days of life, Nan could be such a crack-up. Often out of left field, she would come out with something so incredibly funny. At other times, she had this cute way of saying things while innocently fluttering her lashes that would make people roll with laughter. My brother Grant told me how she made him laugh on Christmas Day just gone. By this time, Nan was fading in and out of being able to recognise people beyond her three, Kerry, Mum and Rodney. The family celebrated the day with her at City Park, where Grant took her over to view the renowned monkeys of Launceston. He pointed in their direction. "See the monkeys, Nana?" Quick as a flash, she reached out, gripped his arm tight and said, "I've got myself a monkey right here." Though she wasn't far from the truth, Grant. My younger brother Jeremy, no doubt recalls this occasion. Nana came to stay at our new house at Bridport to look after Jeremy and me for the fortnight following the sale of Mum and Dad's shop. We were about 11 and 13 respectively. Mum and Dad had gone on holiday to Bali for a well-earned vacation. It was Nana's first night in the house. Jeremy and I, by this stage, were accustomed to the nightly routine of a tribe of possums who liked to thunder up and down our deck after lights out. And thunder they did. The sound was deafening and, if unfamiliar, very unnerving. In the dead of the night, the possums didn't wake Jeremy, Nana did. She was sitting on his bed, shaking him awake to reassure him, she said, that even though there was a loud, strange, frightening noise occurring on the deck, everything was okay. He had nothing to be afraid of. Even through his grogginess, Jeremy could tell that Nan was petrified. He managed to sleepily mumble, "But I'm not scared, Nana, it's just the possums." Nana composed herself and told him that of course she knew it was the possums. She had just wanted to make sure her little Gem John, as she called him, wasn't frightened. She later admitted that she'd been terrified by what she had perceived to be an impending invasion or raid of some sort. 12 or so months ago, I was helping Nana negotiate a ramp outside a cafe. Her balance, eyesight, hearing and orientation were by this time failing. We were tentatively stepping down the ramp when a nearby motorbike spluttered, revved and then roared past. Nan looked at me with wide-eyed horror and asked, "Where did that sound come from?" "It's okay, Nan," I said, "it's just a motorbike." "Oh," she said, obviously very, very relieved. "Thank goodness, I thought the noise might have been coming from me." She then let out an enormous chuckle, and I had to hold on to her to stop myself from falling over with laughter. In me, and I'm sure many people, she frequently evoked this huge desire to just hug her. I think people also enjoyed her company because, in simple terms, she didn't express harsh judgments or force her opinions on you. She just listened. We also knew that if we told Nana our deepest worries, she would never ever repeat them to someone else. She could be trusted to keep her mouth firmly closed. She could chat about a wide range of topics, from the history of the world wars, European history, character analysis of the royals, novels and literature, to the minutiae of everyday life, such as which was the best supermarket or boutique at which to shop. And without being intrusive or nosy, she was genuinely interested in whoever she was talking to. She would ask about their family, their work, their life in general, and she was sincerely interested in what supermarket they shopped at. In her interactions with others, age, education, social status, and one's sexuality was no barrier. She was as equally welcoming of my husband as she was of my wife later on down the track. In the 80s, She spent a lot of time helping out in Mum and Dad's Bridport store, which encompassed a news agency, general store and a coffee shop. After initially being in awe of her because they had mistaken her for royalty, the locals quickly grew to know and love her. She was able to engage all the customers, be they the fishermen, the tradies, and many hungover young people desperately seeking a pie and a Coke, the local CWA members, the town mayor, and Arthur the milkman. Poor Arthur, he might have tried, I don't know, but he had no chance. Nan was remarkable for her age. Even at 100 years of age, her only medication was an occasional Panadol. For a few years she was on blood pressure medication, but at age 97 her doctor said no need to take them anymore. For someone who never exercised, other than running like a bat out of hell if she thought Maya was about to close, who drank coffee instead of water, loved her wine and could drink any bloke under the table and still maintain absolute dignity and decorum, she was just incredible. Most women at my age would give anything to have her supple, unblemished skin, not to mention her astute mind and impeccable recall. I would have loved to have been blessed with her innate sense of style. She was striking, beautiful and proud, and turned heads as a result. I have been borrowing clothes from her wardrobe my whole life. As a teenager, when friends would comment on an article of clothing I was wearing and ask where I had got it from, instead of shrinking from embarrassment to admit it was my Nana's hand-me-down, I would swell with pride. Those who hadn't met her would be either intrigued or horrified or both that I was wearing my Nana's clothes. Those who had were not at all surprised, just envious that I had access to such superb clothing options. In a nutshell, Nan was class, but she was also endearingly vain, especially about her hair. For instance, she always donned her Ina Sharple scarf before bed to ensure her hair stayed in place and was perfect in the morning. Never mind that she might have looked a little comical while sleeping. Nan detested having contact with water, especially around her head and face. Her reaction to it was so intense that you could be forgiven for assuming her fear was born of a near-drowning experience at some stage in her life. This may well be the case, I'm not sure, but it seems to me that what she really feared was that an unexpected encounter with water might wreak havoc on her makeup and hair. I was reminded of her water anxiety only recently when spending some time with her, mum, my 9-year-old daughter and her little friend at a park in Launceston. 10-year-old now, yes. Nan had been on her best behaviour and was enjoying all the attention and care the girls were giving her, including pushing her around in her wheelchair so she could take in the scenery and fresh air. She looked so dignified and serene until suddenly the skies darkened and there were a few spits of rain. As soon as Nana felt those droplets land on her bare arms, her face transformed from looking like a sweet, demure little old lady to having a face on her like a smacked bottom, all pinched and cranky, and she started making little squeaky sounds while flailing her hands about around her head. "Bridget," Mum roared, "get her to shelter." And to the rescue I ran. I heaved the wheelchair towards the quickest route across the lawn, and at that very moment, as the skies opened up and released a torrent, the wheelchair bogged itself in the grass. I struggled and pushed and heaved while Nana shrieked, "For God's sake, Bridget, get me out of the bloody rain." It took a long time for me to recover from this event. Nan had forgotten about it by the time she was safely buckled into the car. Nana was fiercely loyal and incredibly generous to those she loved. And my God, she loved her 3 children, Kerry, Rodney, and my mum, Carolyn. She would have done anything for the 3 of them and their extended families. An example of this is when Mum and Dad owned, worked, lived and breathed in the 7-day business at Bridport from when I was the age of 8 until 14. On numerous occasions throughout the period they owned the shop, Nan would make the trip from Burnie in her sporty red Mitsubishi Stigma, no, not Stigma, stay for weeks on end and slog away like a trooper to help Mum and Dad out. At the end of the day, she would then turn around and make dinner for the family, count the day's takings in the till, spend time with my little brother Jeremy and I, and write a letter to my big brother Grant, who for a lot of that time was living in Brisbane. At the end of her stay, no doubt exhausted and in need of a well-deserved break, she would then instead often take me back to Grandview Avenue with her to look after me some more. Those times staying with Nan are some of the happiest, warmest memories of my life. She always made me the best dip-in eggs, took me often to the swimming pool. She allowed me to play in the nooks and crannies of what as a child seemed to be a massive and fascinating house with endless rooms full of intrigue and mysteries. But best of all, she just allowed me to be me. Having said this, she wouldn't have dreamed of letting me step outside the house in mismatching clothes and a grotty face, as I would have been then and still am prone to do. My most favourite time spent with Nan was when we would hire videos and watch movies together on her what was then considered to be state-of-the-art big screen TV. She introduced me to Little Lord Fauntleroy, Paper Moon and Carefully Might Hear You, to name a few fantastic films that I will forever associate with her. Then when I was 20 and embarking on my first social work placement, which happened to be based in Burnie, I lived with her for 3 months. She cooked for me, worried about me, did my laundry, drove me to and from my work, and listened to me talk about my day. I don't know if I ever expressed my gratitude to her for the way she looked after me, so I will do so now. Thank you, Nana, and thank you for the love, care and friendship you have given me and others in the family. Thank you for the fun and constant laughs, and thank you for being one of the coolest people I've ever known. We love you, Nana. So long. Thank you.
When someone that you love dearly dies, it's inevitable, I guess, you go scrounging around to find some concrete evidence of that love. So it tickled me no end when I came upon a card that my dad had given Mum on the occasion of their 25th wedding anniversary. And Dad rather fancied himself, I think, as a Keats or a Shakespeare, I'm not sure. He fell a bit short though. But in this card he had a little poem, and Blue Eyes and Phil and Hill all seemed to be part of my mum. So he started off, he said, 25 years ago I met a girl named Phil who used to live upon a hill. A-courting there I would go, her mother and father did not always know. To parties and dances and parking too, of the pleasures they were just a few, the mind boggles. Then one day the end did come to all this loving fun. With a ring we wed, but we didn't even have a bed. The grindstone turned, my nose got sore, but I still came back for more. Then one day the doctor said, your wife, my son, is full of fun. I think she's going to have a son. Then one day a boy arrived, his name was Kerry John. I took one look at him and I knew she wasn't having me on. Some good years went by, but you can't always win. Then along came Carolyn. Her hair was long, her eyes were bright. We thought we had at last seen the light. But little did we know that Rodney still had to come and go. Now, Marg and Wayne, don't be forlorn. If I'd have known you were coming, I'd have long been gone. The years they come, the years they go, and to you, my little Phil, I'm glad I never did say no. To my darling Blue Eyes, love from Jack. So I thought that was pretty good, but of course I've got to have a look in, haven't I? And I found this one that I'd sent her, and would you believe it was Mother's Day 1991, about 20 years ago, short of little more. 30, Jeremy's corrected me, 30 years ago. Anyway, and I don't know, I reckon I've posted the card to her because I don't recall a Mother's Day where I wasn't in Mum's life and there with her. But anyway, I've posted it off, I guess, and it says, "A verse for you, Mum, on Mother's Day. There's a real-life toffee lady who lives high on a hill. She's blonde, she's gorgeous, and her name is Phil. Phil is my mum, and she is so chic. Her clothes are very trendy, her style magnifique. But although she's beautiful with her own special charisma, she's always been my perfect mother and a friend I'll always treasure. Her panache and her glamour are just a shining facade for a beauty more precious that comes from inside. Qualities abound in her heart so true, loving and caring it all shines through. As a loyal mother hen and my greatest admirer, my mother has taught me to always be a trier. But try as I might in the years that will pass, I have a long row to hoe to match her class. Phyllis Gwendolyn, matriarch and mentor, I hope you like this poem I've sent you. To dear Mum, lots of love and kisses for a really great Mother's Day. Your ever-loving daughter, Carolyn Gay. So there you have it.
Thanks, Wayne, Bridget and Carolyn. It does take some strength to come and courage to come up on this side of the mic. And thank you for sharing that with us today.
Thanks for the times that you've given me. The memories are all in my mind. And now that we've come to the end of our rainbow, there's something I must say out loud. You once, twice, 3 times a lady, and I love you. Yes, you once, twice, 3 times a lady, and I love you. I love you. When we are together, the moments I cherish with every beat of my heart. To touch you, to hold you, to feel you, to need you. There's nothing to keep us apart. You're once, twice, 3 times a lady, and I love you. I love you. We'll sit enthroned in white grandeur, but tired, you shift a whisper of wayward silver hair from your eyes. I'd never seen you unkempt before. As you whispered, darling, close the door. Well, how have I not made a note of every word you ever said? Time is not on our side, but I pretend that it's alright. She says the Lord has a plan, but admits it's pretty hard to understand. Before you leave, you must know you are beloved. And before you leave, remember I was with you. Are you afraid? However, could you not be in this rosy light? This is strange. I feel a hand come through the mirror, pointing at the light. Point at the light we never see, as you put your feathered arms over me. Before you leave, you must know you are beloved. And before you leave, remember I was with you. And as you leave, I won't hold you back, beloved. We'll sit and talk the stars down from the sky. I'll not forget the chaos in your eyes, love. And as you leave, you must know you are beloved. And as you leave, I can see the wild has come for you. And as you leave, I won't hold you back, beloved. And as you leave, see my children playing at your feet.
As you all know, Phil's health over the last few years had been declining, and the decision was made for her to move to the Fred French home in Launceston to be closer to her family up that end of the state. I often reflect and think that when we've had someone in our lives for so long and that they reach such a grand age that we never actually think that one day they won't be here anymore. For Phyllis has been in all of your lives, and probably for most of you since that moment that you entered this world until now. But Phil made her century. She got her telegram twice, wasn't it, Christine? She achieved the success of a wonderful family, surrounded in her life by the love of all those who knew her. But I also think it's important to know that Phil is still with you. There won't be any new memories to make with her, but there'll be lots and lots of old ones to remember and to smile about again and again. No one can take away what you had with her. It's important to talk about Phil and to remember her and all the special times that you had. They say that the best and the most beautiful things in life cannot be seen or touched. They are your memories. As we've come to the final chapter of Phil's life, it's easy to say it's okay for her to go, to be free from life's ills, but you will miss her because she's not here to care for you. She's not here to touch or to hold. She's not here to have a cuppa or some bubbles and a chat. She's not here to argue. She is not here to laugh because she is not here. This parting is bound to bring sorrow, whatever the relationship that you shared with her. And it's at this moment that I ask you to be at one with your sorrow, your sadness. Let the tears flow if they need to, because someone special in your life is now missing. Phyllis's love and her generosity in the things that she did for others will never be forgotten. A light has gone out without so much as a flicker, and all you have left is the precious memory of how brightly it burned and the warmth that it gave you. We take comfort in knowing that death can physically take away a person, but it cannot remove their footprints from the earth and from our heart. It cannot remove Phyllis's memories and her legacies. It cannot remove the wisdom that she shared with you while she was alive. Cherish the memory of the sound of her voice. Cherish her concern and her care for you, for Phyllis was a unique character. Forever will she be your loving mum and mother-in-law, your nana and great-nan, your auntie and your dear, dear friend. For all of these things, we are grateful to you, Phyllis, and glad that we are named among those who can call you friend. To you, Phil's family, to have given her the ability to quietly slip away, surrounded by your familiarity, your warm and comforting voices, the touches and the holding her hand from you, her family. That is a fine thing. And maybe these words that were penned by Michelle Meelan could come to us from Phil herself. And it says, "Thank you for coming. I'm so glad you're here. We've got one last goodbye for me and those I hold dear. You might find it hard, unfair or sad, but I see it as a chance to reminisce about what we've had. It's not the end when we die, but one last chance to say goodbye." Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this part of our service. I remind you once again of the invitation to join the family at the Wynyard Lawn Cemetery and then to return here for refreshment. Or, as I said before, you're most welcome to wait here for the family to return. Thank you. Would you please stand?
Quando sono solo sono all'orizzonte mancano le parole. Sì, lo so che non c'è una stanza quando manca sole, se non ci sei tu con me su le finestre, mostra a tutti il mio cuore che hai acceso, chiudi dentro me la luce che hai incontrato per strada. Time to say goodbye. Paesi che non ho mai tutto vissuto con te. Adesso sì li vivo con te. Partirò su navi per mari che io lo so, non esistono più. It's time to say goodbye.
Quando sono solo sogna all'orizzonte mancano le parole e io sì lo so che sei con me, tu mia luna e tu sei qui con me, mio sole e tu sei qui con me, con me, con me, con me. Time to say goodbye. Paesi che non ho mai veduto, vissuto con te. Adesso sì li vivrò